Hey everybody, it's Shadowstar and Crystal here for a new review. It's time to start a new show, Supergirl, and for our first episode we're also joined by our friend Nebby.
Hi there everyone.
We thought it'd be nice to just have something different for the first episode, but it's time to start Supergirl, the first episode, the pilot. So, I suppose we'll start off with the intro because it already gives you plenty.
Oh yeah, we get a nice backstory at the start.
What I like about the show is it doesn't waste too much time with the intro because the show knows, as she says, even the show knows that basically anyone who's anyone already knows Superman's story, so it just cuts to it. It's like, you already know what's going on here.
Yeah, she's just adding to it saying, yeah, you know his story, but I was there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe at the same time this came like 2 years after Man of Steel, so that must be pretty fresh in everyone's mind, so...
No, Man of
Steel was 2013, I think this was 2015?
Man of Steel, sorry, I was thinking of a different Superman movie. Yeah, Man of Steel... Oh, yeah, you're right. Man of Steel would have been fresh in people's minds. I was thinking of a different Superman movie.
Yeah, so I think maybe since it was a recent Superman movie, they just kind of thought, don't need to touch much on the whole Krypton thing.
Plus, there's been countless Superman movies and shows and whatever throughout the ages. I'm sure almost anyone who's vaguely aware of comics has seen a Superman movie at one point.
Yeah, but...
It's one of those familiar superhero origins out there with Batman and Superman,
basically tie it with Batman and Spider-Man. It's the three most common.
Yeah, but the thing about the intro is that all of this drama would have been solved if they just had a two-seater pod.
Or just more pods. But that's an even dumber complaint I'll get in a whole different episode about pods, but it is odd, but...
Yeah, the whole thing from, like, Immersed Continuous is just, Jor-El is just like, our planet's gonna die, and just the whole Kryptonian Council just ignore it, so it's just like, screw it, I'm
actually, yeah, that is a point that will be brought up later on.
Oh.
No, it's fine. We do learn more backstory about what happens pre-explosion, of course, but, yeah.
Yeah, but if they just had a two-seater pod, they would have ended up together at the same time.
Yeah.
Another thing... Like I said, the show loves doing clever casting, and Kara's adoptive parents are people who have played Supergirl and Superman in previous shows.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
I think she played Supergirl in a movie, and I think he played... I can't remember who he played. He probably played something in something. But anyway, both of them are significant actors. Again, they like doing that, just like with Barry's father.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
I suppose that's the thing. With the first episode, it's all just set up and talking about characters, so...
Yeah.
I don't know. The one thing I like about all these shows is even though they're all superhero shows, every one of their first episodes never feels the same.
Yeah, but that's okay. We get a nice introduction to all our main characters. Kara, James Olsen, Wynn, Cat Grant, Alex.
Basically
Hank.
all of them. Yeah,
Hank Henshaw.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say. I mean, that's the thing. Kara, I don't know. She feels... It's a bit weird with Kara. I mean, if you think about it, she does have in a way, I don't know, what do you think about her personality? She's like... she does have... In some ways, she's a lot like Barry, where she wants
to... Yeah, I was going to say, she's like a female Barry. She's very optimistic.
The arc of the first episode is a bit similar to Barry, but I suppose that's very cliche of first episodes of the first hero getting their first action sequence and all that.
With the whole come on car you can do, I was just thinking, just say Ron Barry, Ron. We all know that's what this basically is.
To be fair, that's unfortunately a cliche of all these superhero shows. Not all of them. Basically, Supergirl and Flash always have that same thing of, you can't do it, yes I can, okay, you did it. It does it all the time. Flash and Supergirl do it all the time. The other shows don't do it as much, though. The other characters are just good at doing what needs to be done.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, we don't get too much of the other characters. We don't get too much of Alex in the episode.
Yeah.
We do have to make mention of, obviously, our favourite character in the show, Cat Grant.
Yes, we named a cat after her.
Well, that was too easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got...
He was a boy cat, but we mostly called him Grant anyway.
Yeah, but I don't know, I don't know what it is. It's just something about Cat Grant.
She's amazing. Everything she says is great.
And just, it's not too evident now, but just in later episodes, she just has some of the best lines.
Yeah, definitely.
And then you've got Wynn, who's basically, you've just combined Cisco and Felicity in one.
Yeah, he's trying really hard to be a Cisco.
He's Cisco because he builds the things, but he's also Felicity because he can hack things.
I mean, I definitely got a Cisco vibe with the whole Super Friends comment. I'm just like, that definitely seems like a Cisco remark.
I mean, I suppose, that's the thing. We always like calling people a Cisco or Felicity because almost every team tends to have at least one person who's basically that guy. There's always the geeky person.
Felicity's the original one. Cisco is not a Felicity clone. He's his own thing, and that's fine.
No, yeah, but
then all the other ones just feel like they're trying to be a Cisco.
Or a Felicity, or both. And he's a bit of both, except for the fact that this show likes to do... This show, unlike, say, The Flash or Arrow, where they stick to teasing just one love interest, they immediately start teasing at least two. Because you've already got Wynn and James.
Yeah, Wynn says... calls her beautiful and stuff, and we know he likes her. And we had that moment where she clearly likes James.
That's the thing. Unlike with Flash and Arrow, it's never as clear as what they want to do with Kara's love stories.
Yeah.
Which, to be honest, I both find it good and bad. Good because it's nice to not have it be so predictable, or nice to not just have, the same thing all the time.
Yeah, whereas in Flash, it's so predictable who he's going to end up with.
But with this, but also it can get annoying at times because it just feels like the writers legitimate. As we'll get into it, the writers really just don't know what they want to do with Kara.
Yeah.
They don't know what to want to do with a lot of characters, but yeah.
Yeah, adding on to that, one thing that whilst watching this first episode was like, this is a nice take on just completely subverting my expectations because of the whole Superman myth. There's adding on to the love story, it's nice to have something that isn't as clear as Lois Lane and Clark. It's they're just...
Well, that's true. That's true. I mean, to be fair, unless you're someone who religiously reads the comics, it's not like the name will stick out. Whereas people at least are familiar with Lois and maybe Iris if you're at least somewhat into the comics. But with Supergirl's love interest, it's not as clear, which is a good thing. Yeah. That's the thing. I don't mind. Some people get really pissed off when one of these shows isn't too faithful for the comics, but I actually don't mind it, because otherwise the show would become predictable.
Well, we don't know any different. Though.
Exactly, that's why it doesn't bother me, but even if it was different, it still doesn't bother me anyway. The show's got to do its own thing.
The whole mindset of people just wanting movies and shows to just be adaptations of comics and want to just bore me. People are allowed to do their own things.
I know, the weird thing is, there were plenty of people when this show began, and still to this day, get pissed off that it's a Supergirl show, not a Superman show, and I'm thinking to myself, the fact that they're pissed off is the reason we need a Supergirl show, because, it's not, that's the one thing I like about the CW Arrowverse is, with the exception of maybe The Flash, it often explores the characters who aren't as big names in the Arrowverse, in DC in general, okay, Arrow's kind of a big name, but not too huge. Supergirl's not as big. Obviously, you focus on her instead of Superman. Obviously, we know later we'll get Batwoman. And even though Flash is a big name, outside of the comics, he hadn't had that much attention. There's never really been much stuff like Flash movies. There's always thousands of Superman and Batman movies.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, the CW
But speaking of the fans, more recently they've been really annoying because they claim it's sexist that right around the same time Supergirl gets cancelled, they start up Superman and Lois.
Well, because that happened way before the show was coming out way before Supergirl ended, and it wasn't cancelled; it's ending.
Yeah. I shouldn't have used that.
That's
word.
Another mistake everyone makes. But anyway, getting back on topic to the episode.
That's the thing. With the first episode, you end up talking about the show in general.
This episode felt, I don't know, it felt like it went really long.
No, it felt all right to me.
It felt like there was a lot in this episode. Because you got the opening scene, you get to introduce Kara, then you've got to have the first confrontation, you get you get a plane scene, then she's got to find a villain, then she's got to fight a villain again. Then you got all the in-between scenes with the training montage with Wynn, all that stuff with Cat Grant and the DEO. It really just felt like the episode was jam-packed, but it did drag on a few times with the stuff with Alex.
I don't know, it kept my interest.
Honestly, it felt like the middle ground because, compared to, say, with Arrow and Flash, Kara already knows all about her powers. She doesn't have to go through the same thing those two went with, just getting themselves...
Well, yeah, it's kind of it's a bit of a hybrid, because Oliver already has a huge backstory, we just don't know it. Flash is a nobody until he gets his powers. Supergirl's kind of a middle ground where she knows her powers, she knows what's going on.
She's still getting
But she's
used
new to
learning.
it, and it's still new to being a hero. So it's kind of a middle ground between Flash and Arrow in terms of that. But like I said, because of they're different people, all these pilots just feel very different, which is good. Because you could think it would be predictable to keep having superhero stories, but it's not.
Yeah.
Although I will say it is nice to have Jimmy Olsen, as I know him, as James in this series, because like he was one of Superman's closest confidants. So it's like rather than being able to have Clark in at teach or help out with Kara, we just have someone who was really close to him to be able to help guide.
Well, that's the other thing people get mad at is the fact that Superman's not in it. But again, if he was in it, you'd just be stealing the attention. So you have other characters.
I feel like they were never planning to have a Superman in the show.
Well, okay, there's some debate on whether or not they were even allowed to, but eventually they got leeway in terms of using him, because apparently early on, CW and WB, because WB has the rights to all the DC stuff, but lets CW do stuff, which means they have to have permission. And for some reason, I don't think this is true these days because we've had bigger name characters, but back in the day, there was this stupid, I don't know of how true this policy was, of WB wouldn't let them use characters they were using in movies, which is why Superman's so relevant, so we can't use Batman or Superman, which is why, say, you'll notice in Arrow, we soon stopped using the Suicide Squad because they started making that movie anyway. So, I don't know why, they've just got this dumb idea that, oh, sorry, we can't use these characters, we're using them in movies, even though it's a completely different thing anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Bat and Bugger is partially one reason why I am fond of Arrow, because of just using the lesser Batman villains, but that's more for an Arrow conversation.
I mean, that's another true thing that everyone complains about with Arrow is they use basically almost all his villains of Batman villains, especially.
I don't mind it. They're just using Joker all the time for Batman.
Well, that's a good point. They're using villains which haven't been done all the time, but
yeah, and like some of the things we'll end up seeing in Supergirl are originally Superman things.
That's true. People will complain about that a lot as well.
One time I was talking to a friend about Supergirl because I had just started watching it and he knew Superman stuff. And I mentioned Bizarro and we had a little misunderstanding
There's a lot of,
there.
yeah, because there's a lot of villains, especially in the earlier seasons, that are Superman villains, or at least kind of variations of them.
Yeah.
But to be fair, again, from what I understand, Supergirl wasn't that well known, so she probably doesn't have 1,000 villains like Superman and other characters do.
so she's going to take some of his.
But I don't know.
Not much else to talk about except we have to mention that ending cliffhanger.
Well, yeah, I mean, every show's got to sort of hint at where the story's going, so of course we get our hint of the villain.
Yeah. Plus, Hank did explain to us how she pulled away Fort Ross, which was a prison that was in the Phantom Zone.
Oh, yeah. So, we get our establishment of where our villains are coming from and what our main villain supposedly might be and all that stuff.
We have our list/particle accelerator for this series.
That's a good point. Like, you can easily, in the first episode, it's a pretty nice trick. You've got the list, you've got the accelerator making metahumans, and now you've got Force Ross escapees, which is basically a season 1 pattern. Thankfully, other shows stop doing this, but it's really weird how in the first episode you could basically name, okay, this is where all our villains are coming from.
Well, it's season 1, they're trying.
Season 1, that's one thing I will agree. Whereas season 1 of Arrow and Flash, really good. And I'm not saying season 1 of Supergirl is bad. It does have a very rocky start, which is why a lot of people don't get into it, which is why I keep having to saying get into it, because season 3 and 4 are amazing. But season 1 and a little bit of 2 start off to a rocky start. But anyway, it's a pilot, so it's very difficult. Like I say, I always try to rank a pilot on how well it does as a pilot. And I think it does very well as a pilot.
I think it'll go as high as 7.5.
I'd still say, I think I prefer this I prefer this over Arrow's pilot and Constantine's pilot, but obviously Flash pilot is still probably better.
If only we could remember what we rated them.
That's a good point. I think I gave Flash a pretty high rating. I think I'm going to give this an 8.5. It's still a very good pilot, probably just below Flash.
Okay.
And maybe one other show, but it's a totally different version of a pilot. Anyway, what are you rating it?
I said 7.5.
Well, since I'm not much of a regular here, I don't really have much of a basis on any ratings.
You could just throw a number out.
Yeah, I'm thinking probably a 7.
Fair enough.
Nothing too spectacular for a season opener, but it certainly surpassed my expectations.
Exactly. It sets the ground, but that's a good point. I suppose if you're somebody who is expecting a show within the Superman mythos, I can understand why it is very different. But if you're somebody who's just coming in fresh, it just feels like, okay, it's a nice, fun superhero pilot.
For context, the day before we're recording this, I watched Superman Returns, so it's like, this is a vast contrast. And
well,
and it's funny because you're watching Arrow and you saw Ray in that.
Yeah. I don't know, just...
And that's not as much of a well-respected movie from what everyone knows.
Yeah, the reason I'm rating it about 7 is just because it's nice to see on screen a smaller scale Superman story.
Exactly. Not everything. That's the thing. That's what I like about these shows. They take the smaller scale stuff and give it some attention. Because it just gets boring if it's always Superman, Joker, Batman.
Yeah, and contrasting it to Superman Returns. Spoilers, Lex Luthor creates a whole massive land out of kryptonite. It's just like, oh, terraforming, that's a fun plot. And then just move into this where it's just, oh, an escapee alien. Okay, I can deal with that.
Anyway, well, I suppose that's it for now.
Well, yeah, with a movie, you have to have a bigger threat. Whereas with a TV show, you don't get as big of a threat unless it's like the finale.
That's true, because a big threat is spread over 20 episodes. Yeah. Which, that's one thing about that kind of annoys me about these shows is they insist on having a 20-episode season, which oftentimes leads to filler and all that. Thankfully, some of the other shows like Legends and Titans and all that have smaller seasons, which honestly works better. Yeah. Smaller seasons, like between 10 to 16 is a nice, healthy amount. 20 is pushing it. But anyway, we're rambling, but it's a big episode.
Yeah.
But with that being said, what's the name of the next episode?
Stronger Together.
Well... Anyway, we'll see you next time for more Supergirl and other things as well. See you next time, guys. See you next time.